Hello everybody and welcome to Every Movie Ever. I'm your host Eric and today I want to get started with Sky High. Now this is a movie from the middle 2000s that I saw in the theater. It's the sort of movie they don't really make anymore. It's from Walt Disney Studios and is very much in the tradition of the Disney family fare, like The Computer Who Wore Tennis Shoes or those other, kind of Kurt Russell starring movies that they kind of stopped making, especially live action. This is sort of the last gasp of that, and appropriately it does feature Kurt Russell, the man with the greatest hair in all of Hollywood. Now, so what is Sky High? Sky High, it's both sort of late for its time in being a movie that's sort of part of that movement that was already over when it came out, but it is also ahead of its time because it is a superhero movie and a teen superhero movie set at a high school. So it is a little bit like a superhero Harry Potter, and that is pretty cool. And you know what? This is a really fun movie. It is maybe not as fun as I remembered it, but it's super fun. The story follows follows Kurt Russell's son. Kurt Russell in this world, Kurt Russell and his wife are the biggest superheroes, and the story follows their son as he starts his freshman year at the high school for superheroes, the eponymous Sky High. The main character doesn't have any superpowers when the movie starts, gets superpowers, befriends the outcasts, starts hanging out with the cool kids. The cool kids turn out to be supervillains, hangs out with the outcasts again. That age-old story. Now, you'll notice I don't remember the main character's name. And, that's because the part of this movie that is, the teen heroes movie is fine. It's good and entertaining, but it is not the most interesting for me part of the movie. It is the part of the movie, though, that is the most like what your standard sort of direct-to-TV Disney Channel output is now. All these movies with teen casts and stuff that I'm sure teen audiences love, but which isn't necessarily for a guy who's like 35 years old. But the thing that puts this movie over the top from being, fine to being great is the adult cast. The parents and teachers are tremendous. So in addition to Kurt Russell, you have from Kids in the Hall, you have Dave Foley. He is Kurt Russell's former sidekick. Now he teaches being a sidekick at the high school. And he is joined at the high school by fellow Kids in the Hall alum Kevin McDonald as a big-brained super genius guy. And anytime Kevin McDonald's on screen is phenomenal. Particularly a double date scene later in the movie with the gym coach, the Chin himself. The great Bruce Campbell is the gym coach in this movie. Always a delight to see Bruce. If you are somehow unfamiliar with Bruce Campbell, he is a god of the genre movie, of the B movie, and the star of the immortal Evil Dead trilogy. Always a delight to see Bruce on screen. Also a delight to see one of my favorites, Wonder Woman herself, Lynda Carter, as the high school principal. Glad to see you in the movie, Linda. In addition to all of them, you also have a couple of rising stars in amongst the teen heroes. You've got Danielle Panabaker, who is currently on The Flash and is one of my favorite parts of The Flash. She is I'm hesitant she's the best friend / romantic interest who does herself do a lot of day saving and has a lot of agency in the movie, which is nice to see. You also have Mary Elizabeth Winstead, the lady who was in Scott Pilgrim and 10 Cloverfield Lane as the baddie. And let's not forget Jim Rash, the dean, also a bad guy in this movie. Tons of great people, tons of talent in this movie. A real joy to watch. If you're flipping channels and you happen to see that's on, stick around. I think you'll like it. 3.5 stars. Up next, Little Nicky. Now, I am an avowed, fan of the oeuvre of one Mr. Adam Sandler. Here's the thing, though. There are maybe 2 Adam Sandler movies I genuinely like. I genuinely like Billy Madison, And I would have to, I maybe genuinely like Happy Gilmore. I would have to watch it again to find out if that's true. And at one point in my life, I liked The Waterboy, but I haven't seen it in such a long time that Lord only knows how that holds up. But I will see any Adam Sandler movie because they are a thing unto themselves, and they are usually at least watchably bad. Which brings us to one of his earlier films that I had never bothered to see, the aforementioned Little Nicky, where Adam Sandler plays the doofus son of Satan, played by Harvey Keitel, who has to fight his brothers on Earth in a bid to claim the throne of hell. Now, if you have vague memories of this movie, you might remember this one as the one where, unlike, say, your Billy Madisons and your Happy Gilmores and your, say, Big Daddies, Adam Sandler goes all in on being a character and not just playing, you know, a version of Adam Sandler, which means we get a weird Adam Sandler voice for an hour and a half. This is the one where he talks, well, he doesn't even talk like this. This is the regular Adam Sandler silly guy voice. Little Nicky talks like this and makes weird faces for an hour and a half. And it wears very thin, very quickly. This is not his best comedy by any means. I wouldn't even call this one of his middle-of-the-road ones. I would call this a pretty annoying movie, but let's talk about the most memorable parts of it. One, this is one of the first appearances by a couple of guys who are in like all of his movies as a couple of his weird friends. Don't know their names, can't be bothered to look them up, but here they play heavy metal fans who are super thrilled to be palling around with the son of Satan. They're pretty amusing in this. I like them in this. The concept is kind of creative, right? Sandler, his high concepts sort of hit a ceiling in these movies, right? Like these are movies about, Adam Sandler goes to Africa with Drew Barrymore, or Adam Sandler has a twin sister. This one, by going further into the fantasy realm of being the son of Satan, is at least a creative concept. Also fun and interesting, Satan's dad, Little Nicky's grandpa, is Rodney Dangerfield. So you get a few isolated shots of Rodney Dangerfield, clearly all filmed in a single afternoon, wandering around hell in a robe and cracking wise. And, you know, that's okay in my book. The other big thing I want to mention about this, again, total misfire of a movie, is that this is, now I would have to, and God help me, I'd be interested to do it for the sake of science, to go back and watch the Adam Sandler movies in order. Because certainly a staple of Sandler's recent output is heavy product placement. I would point you toward Click, where Bed Bath & Beyond plays a huge part in the story, or the oh boy, what are they called? The Grown Ups movies, which are just commercials for like Carnival Cruise Lines or something like that. Little Nicky seems, at least to me, to be, if not the first instance of this, one of the early instances and one of the hardest hitting, where Little Nicky, once coming to Earth, becomes a huge fan of Popeye's chicken and professes his love of Popeye's chicken throughout, featuring many call-outs to the name of the company, of shots of the logo and the food. This, ironically, this might be the movie where Adam Sandler sold his soul to corporate interest. So, Little Nicky, it is sort of a fascinating movie. It remains watchably bad, but it is annoying and also and doesn't work on just a basic narrative level to a degree that his movies don't. It sort of goes up and down for me because so much of it is so fascinating that it sort of becomes watchable again, which is why I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. All right, it is time to explore the final frontiers of sci-fi with a new segment. This is Spaced Out. Today we're traveling to deep space for a movie that I remember seeing once on videotape because my brother and I thought the trailers looked cool when we were little. It's Mom and Dad Save the World. This is an odd movie, to say the least. It stars Terry Garr, who is always a welcome presence, and also that guy who was the principal on Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Can't remember his name, but I believe he has since gone to prison for very bad things, so the less said about him, the better. It also stars Jon Lovitz, and the story here is that Jon Lovitz is the stupid leader of a planet of stupid people that also involves fish people and dog people in what are, honest to God, pretty great makeup effects, if I'm being honest. Jon Lovitz somehow, across the vastness of space, sees Terry Garr and decides to transport her and her husband to his planet so he can force her to marry him for vague reasons. Yeah, it's a weird movie. It's a super weird movie. It is very silly and dumb. It is not a popular movie. I did not like it as a youth, and I can understand why people wouldn't like it now, but God help me, I enjoyed this movie. I don't know what it was. A lot of it is Lovitz. I am a big fan of some real vintage Lovitz, and this features acting, thank you, from Jon Lovitz that I enjoyed very much. Wallace Shawn, you might remember him from The Princess Bride, is also in this movie. Amusingly, his wife is the gorgeous swimsuit model Kathy Ireland, who in this movie, now you might remember in a previous movie show, I talked about a movie she had made called Alien from LA, where her acting is the pits. This movie, I'm not saying she's, any Katharine Hepburn or anything, but she handles herself capably in a role made for her, and, that makes me say to Kathy Ireland, you're not so bad after all, kid. Eric Idle also in this movie. Again, those makeup effects are great. The production design is pretty terrific. It is a very silly movie, not to be taken seriously, but I did enjoy it. 3 stars. All right, gang, it is time for nobody's favorite part of the show. This is the worst of the week. So in a week where we have talked about both Mom and Dad Saves the World and Little Nicky to be the worst movie I saw this week, is saying something. And into that world we venture into Bright. Bright is the latest, not the latest, but a reasonably recent Netflix original movie. This is the one that Netflix kind of went all in on, hiring Will Smith to star, huge box office draw, Will Smith, and directed by David Ayer, who recently directed the terrible but profitable Suicide Squad movie. And this is a movie that if Netflix, and the way Netflix collects its data is a little oblique, but if what they're saying is correct, and there's a pretty healthy grain of salt to be taken here, had this opened theatrically, it would have been the most successful movie of Will Smith's career, which is kind of mind-blowing. Because Will Smith, no slouch. Bright is a movie where Will Smith plays a Los Angeles City police officer in a world where the human world and the fantasy world are combined. So there's like dragons and fairies and stuff. And Will Smith is teamed with an orc in a movie that is a very thinly veiled treatise on racism, where everybody is racist toward orcs, and we have to learn that racism is bad. Now, obviously, racism is a terrible ill of the world. This movie, however, does a very poor job of dealing with those themes in any kind of adult way. It's largely just lip service. That is, hey, orcs are gross. Oh, but this orc is all right. It's not very good. The biggest problem, it's a conceivably interesting premise, right? In any movie, that is going to be a pretty thin allegory. But you could do a lot with it. And you could do a lot with, building this world of humans and fantasy creatures living together decades or centuries after some great war that the orcs were the bad guys in. You'll note I'm confused as to when the war took place, and that's in part because one of this movie's greatest sins is its poor world building. It has this conceivably interesting idea or world at the core of it and does virtually nothing with it. There's very little influence of the fantasy realm on our world, right? Mostly the world and our pop culture and everything is exactly as it is in our real world. There are just orcs in sports jerseys and things, and you don't see a lot of the other way of how these fantasy creatures and fantasy world affected us, which is disappointing. The movie is also super dull and boring. The plot, which revolves around trying to find and protect some sort of mystical lady, is uninteresting and confusing. Yeah, it's just not a fun movie. It is fairly watchable. I mean, it is Will Smith, and he's a movie star for a reason. And David Ayer, while not my cup of tea, is at least a capable filmmaker. There are some all right performances in this. I don't mean to tear it down more than it needs to be. It's just that it's kind of a whiff. It does, however, get a whole half-star bump up because at one point they're driving down the street and you see some riot cops, and one of them is a centaur. So for just a second, you see a centaur in where his top half is wearing like riot gear and stuff, and you're like, that's a really cool idea, and then they don't do anything with it. So Bright, I don't know, I didn't care for it, but it is watchable, so that's why I'm giving it 2.5 stars. Folks, it's best of the bunch. You guys, what a best of the bunch I have for you today. Whereas Bright decided to try to deal with modern social issues and just entirely whiffed it, there's another movie that came out recently that knocked it out of the park. You're going to think I am messing with you, but that movie, one of the best movies I have seen this year, is Paddington 2. Paddington 2 is amazing. This is, of course, the sequel to Paddington, the story of the classic children's character Paddington Bear, a little bear who lives in the city of London with a human family and gets himself in over his head but always comes out on top. Now, I saw Paddington. Can't remember if we've talked about Paddington on this show or not, but here's what I got to tell you. Paddington was good. Paddington 2, defying all of the odds, was great. Now, like I said, I liked Paddington, so I was expecting to like Paddington 2, but being a sequel, you're kind of like, so what? This is going to be like more of the same or something? No, 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 no. This is a movie that so improves upon the first one. I can't tell you. I'm so excited to tell you guys about how great Paddington 2 is. It is a masterful and touching movie that starts out very much as a sequel to Paddington. Paddington is still living in London with his adopted family. Things are going fine. Everyone loves him. You know, he has these great relationships with his neighbors in the neighborhood. He is a very heartwarming and touching character. And he wants to buy his grandma, who lives in the home for retired bears, a birthday present, because she's always wanted to visit London. So he sets his heart on a pop-up book of London to send her. So it's kind of like she's visiting London. It is, however, an antique pop-up book. It costs $1,000. So Paddington launches a window washing service to earn the money for the book. So far, standard issue, heartwarming, cute, nice, whatever. Here's where it gets real. Hugh Grant is in this movie. And I like Hugh Grant fine, but he's never been my favorite. This is a late career Hugh Grant revelation. Hugh Grant is so great in this movie, guys. He's the villain of the piece. He is a retired actor, and he plays everything just big enough. He is not chewing the scenery. He is also not underplaying things. He knows the movie he's in, and he somehow just surgically dials in his performance so perfectly to play a kooky, colorful character that is also completely understandable as the egotistical villain of the piece, a has-been actor who spends not a lot of this movie, but great scenes in this movie in the costume room of his house, because he has a room of his old costumes, talking to himself and doing the voices and accents of the other parts that he's played so that Scrooge and Macbeth and Hamlet serve as a sort of Greek chorus to his plot to steal this pop-up book and use it to find a treasure that will allow him to stage his comeback in the West End. Silly, right? Here's the deal. Hugh Grant's super successful in this movie. He steals that pop-up book, and he frames our friend Paddington. Now, spoilers abound, and I feel ways about spoiling this movie for you because I loved it so much. But I'm not sure that a lot of you are going to see it just based on my saying it's great. So I'm going to tell you what happens. If you don't want to know, turn off the show. If you're curious, stay tuned, because guys, this is a movie where 20 minutes into it, they send Paddington Bear to prison. And Paddington spends a significant portion of this movie in prison with criminals. It's nuts. And here's the best part. Paddington gets to prison, and it's, it's a children's movie, so it's not like Shawshank Redemption. But it's, a gray and sad place where the prisoners are unhappy, the guards are unhappy, right? And they all eat gruel. And then Paddington introduces his famous marmalade sandwiches to the chef, and the prison changes, you guys. Because here's the thing, it becomes bright and cheery with pastels, and he makes friends, and they turn the canteen into like a cute, sunny eatery and things. In this part, it is a movie about the possibilities of, instead of a punitive prison system, of a reformatory prison system. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, because ultimately this is a movie about how Paddington makes everyone's lives better. There's this great scene in the middle of the movie where the neighborhood is dealing with that Paddington is gone and has been arrested. And in this very beautiful masterstroke, calling back to a scene earlier where you see how he interacts with everybody and how much everybody loves him, you see what his absence means and how everyone in the neighborhood's lives are markedly worse for his not being around. It is, and I think this is an important thing for today, it is a story about the greatness of the immigrant experience and how much immigrant populations can benefit the worlds that accept them into it, right? By embracing Paddington, everyone is better for it. And this is a very optimistic movie about immigrants and immigration that I think everyone should see for at least that side of the story. It is, like I said, hugely touching. It never talks down to you. The story is not simply told or thinly veiled or beating you over the head with things. It's just a movie that you watch and let all of it wash over you and watch the effect that Paddington has on his world hopefully grow your heart just a little bit. It is a movie with just perfect characters and characterization, wonderfully charming and very funny. Paddington 2 is 5 stars. So you guys, recently we had the VIP Awards, which are our big awards ceremony here at the station, where we honor all of our volunteers for all of the hard work they do here. And I am super excited to say that our whole staff on Every Movie Ever was honored, with particular shout outs to Ben, Ryan, and Gavin, who all took home trophies. Ryan helps me here in the studio with filming. Ben helps with the editing. Gavin does the graphics. I'm very, very proud of all of them. I said some things at the award ceremony. They received their awards. And what I want to do right now is I want to show you footage from the ceremony of these great guys and their awards. He started as a volunteer through the Pathways program a little more than a year ago. In no time, he mastered the software and became our primary editor of Every Movie Ever, which he still does with a great deal of talent and enthusiasm. And if that wasn't all, he impressed me even further by tackling challenging animation projects for his own YouTube channel. I couldn't be more proud of the work he does each and every week. This year, the Excellence in Editing Award goes to Ben Daniels.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
It was a pleasure to be here tonight, and I just want to say thank you to all the supporters out there, and what I learned over the course of working with North Metro TV, anything can be accomplished no matter how hard you think it is and stuff, and there's all types of creativity to be done out in the real world, and I just want to say thank you all and thank you for all your help and stuff, and I can't wait to start working with you guys again in the future.
Yeah.
So thank you, Eric Houston.
Thank you, Ben. You did a great job. Thank you very much. This next honoree is one of the most impressive young men I've ever had the pleasure to work with. Despite never having worked on a TV show before, he almost instantly mastered Studio A, learning in no time how to help me set up the cameras and microphones and run the teleprompter for a weekly program. He's one of our most enthusiastic volunteers and one of the most fun to work with. His smile and enthusiasm never fail to brighten a room, and I can safely say that every movie ever wouldn't be the same without him, and shooting it certainly wouldn't be half as fun. This year, the Wunderkind Award goes to Ryan Frenshaw.
I just want to say, thank you everybody for, giving me this opportunity to do something that I've always done since I was a little child. I want to thank my parents, my siblings, my grandparents who have always, given me courage and or something like that. They've always helped me, and and Eric, I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity and for coming every week to listen to you review movies every single week, and I cannot wait to work with you more in the future. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Congratulations. Thanks, buddy. I think our final honoree tonight was born to work in television. He's whip smart and possesses a talent for detail and exactness. He's the backbone of every movie ever, and in fact, inspired the creation of the show with his love of movies. And did I mention he's easily the most accomplished puzzle solver at North Metro TV? He's a joy to work with and a regular presence at shoots and classes, not to mention his weekly Friday afternoon volunteer slot. I know he has a bright future ahead of him, and I'm happy to be able to say I knew him when. This year, the Public Access Spirit Award goes to Gavin Van Treese.
I'd just like to give a big thanks to Eric Houston for letting me for giving me stuff to work on for his Every Movie Ever show, especially his truly disturbing looking ants. Thank you.
So again, congratulations to Ben, Ryan, and Gavin. I'm so proud of all of you, but I don't want to forget Joe and Rick. Joe helps out with creating a lot of my over-the-shoulder graphics here and does a great job with it. And Rick has just come on editing those graphics into the show. Unfortunately, they couldn't be at the ceremony, but they're a huge part of the show, and I want to thank them. I also want to give a shout out to Brett, who took home an award. Brett is going to be joining us in a couple of weeks as another editor on the show. Excited to have him. A huge, hearty congratulations to all the guys for all of their hard work and for being so recognized. Thank you guys so much. You do a great job. That is going to do it for this episode of Every Movie Ever. I want to thank you all for watching us. We'll be back next time where we talk about every movie ever made. Good night.